Today I'm joined by Sky Sports reporter Michael Bridge to discuss Tottenham's victory against LASK in the Europa League last night, including our chances of success in that competition. Also to touch on our draw against West Ham in the Premier League on Sunday and ask, is the winning mentality really there with Jose Mourinho? And finally to identify the key players in our squad and look at the ones who can push us on to success this season. I'm Matt Hayes and you're watching the Tottenham Fan Voice podcast. Hello and welcome back to Matty's Tottenham blog and the third episode of the Tottenham Fan Voice podcast. Today I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Sky Sports reporter and Spurs fan Michael Bridge. Michael, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Look, first of all, we've seen you a lot on Good Morning Transfers and Sky Sports News. It's been a very busy transfer window for you. Has it been an enjoyable one?
Yeah, from a Tottenham side, I think it's been really, really enjoyable. I was on set when the Bale move was announced, and I broke the Bale news on the Saturday. Just extremely exciting. It felt like a deadline day, really. Because I think deadline day is watering down a lot now. Clubs are getting quite savvy. So to actually have been on set when the Bale transfer was happening was fantastic. And I think, if we're talking about Tottenham, I think they've had a great window. So it's been a very exciting last few weeks.
Yeah, it's been, I suppose, for Spurs fans. I've been saying a lot on my channel. It was a weird one in that we were relaxed on deadline day. It doesn't happen often for us. And look, I'm sure we would have liked to have seen that Milan Skriniar deal get over the line on the last day, but we can't complain about the window we've had. It's been a really special one. And I think it is one that is going to lead to trophies and perhaps a Europa League trophy. And of course, our group stage campaign for that did start last night against LASK. Of course, we won by 3-0. What did you make of the performance?
I think Spurs didn't really have to get out of second gear. I think it's quite a weakish group, and Spurs shouldn't really have any problem whatsoever qualifying. It was the game felt over at half time, which was probably a dangerous thing to say given what happened on Sunday. But I didn't feel Tottenham had any problems. Ben Davies and Sanchez had a very easy night, where usually in the Premier League I'd be kind of worried if them two with a central pairing. But I think the real positive from the game is that Mourinho has made many changes, and the level is still there. I think the players coming in now have this pressure on them to keep their place and prove to him. I think Dele Alli was one of the best players when he came on. I thought he played really well. So there's options now, and with the Europa League you can have 12 subs on the bench. You can bring 5 on. It really gives managers the opportunity to spread your squad when there's so many games in a short space of time.
Yeah, and I think one player who really stood out last night on his debut was, of course, Carlos Vinicius. He managed to grab 2 assists as well. And I think we heard Lucas Moura talking about him being kind of the classic number 9 that Spurs have been missing. But we did also see him pulling out wide. He made a lot of good runs down that inside left channel. Did you think it was a good debut from him?
Yeah, he looks clever. I like the look of him. It sounds like a cliche, but the only thing missing was a goal. But yeah, I liked his build-up play. I loved his through ball to Lucas Moura for the goal. He's, I think he's a bit raw. I think there's a player there that needs a lot of coaching. And I think this is why it's such a great deal for Tottenham. They've got a year with him, and then Mourinho and his coaching staff and Levy will sit down and say, look, yeah, I've seen enough to buy the player, or they could just say, look, thanks Benfica, thanks for the year. An amazing deal, really, because most deals now are with an obligation to buy, not an option. So I don't know how Tottenham got that deal over the line. It's not as if he's a reserve. He was the first teamer. He was top scorer for Portugal in the Portuguese league last season. So it's an intriguing one, really. So I hope to see him more. And it was interesting that Mourinho said that he will play alongside Kane as well, because people are already saying, similarities to Kane. You can tell they're completely different players. I think if Kane played yesterday, he'd probably got 4 goals. It was one of those games, and he even looked frustrated, didn't he, on the bench? He wanted to come on, but it was great that he didn't. He now gets like a real proper week off before Burnley. So it's just great to see Spurs have a striker on a striker option again.
Yeah, it's something we've been crying out for way too long. I think we were actually the only team in the top 5 leagues in Europe without a second choice striker for quite a while there. It's a crazy one, especially considering kind of like the money we did invest in the club last summer. Yeah. But we've touched it already. The big signing we made this summer was Gareth Bale. It's sentimentally it's an absolutely massive one for the fans, but I think on the pitch it can also be a massive addition for us. I think we have seen sort of an improvement from the players in that position. I don't know if it's kind of the motivation or the kind of feeling of having Bale in the club, or if they do feel they have more competition. But we finally got to see Bale start the game last night. Of course, he had a cameo role against West Ham on Sunday. It was never going to be the massive goal scoring exploits for him from his first few appearances at Spurs. But how have you made of how he's gotten started?
I think it's clear that he needs a few games to really get up to scratch, and that's obvious, isn't it? Really, he's barely played for Real Madrid over the past few months, past year probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all, and I'm guilty of it as well, probably need some kind of calming down and realization that he does need time. When he nearly scored that amazing goal against West Ham, you see afterwards he was really blowing. So it's just one of those age-old adages. You can train forever, but it's all about being on the pitch. And even the likes of Gareth Bale faced it as well. I thought it was okay yesterday. Showed good glimpses. But yeah, I think he just needs more games. I'd be shocked if he started against Burnley on Monday. I think again, 20 minutes here and there, and then I think out of nowhere we'll see some kind of stunning goal, and then that'll be him back. But you're right in terms of low key. I think that's good now. He's settled in. The hype about it is over, and he's just part of the squad now. And in fairness to Gareth, that's all he wants. He's already built up a really good rapport with the players. Doherty as well. I noticed they're getting on really well, and I don't know if they knew each other beforehand, but in training apparently they're always together having a laugh. And I can't imagine Wolves when he's been there at Ireland. I don't know how they'd be mates, but yeah, it happens quickly, doesn't it? Which is great, and he's happy. It's not a cliche. He will play better because he's happy. So it's a positive, and it's just great to have him back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just seeing him in that Spurs jersey for the first time. Of course, the results on Sunday did put a bit of a dampener on that, but regardless, it was a magical moment seeing him back. And I think touched on the happiness as well. We heard from Sergio Reguilon in the last week or so that Bale seems like a new man. He's a new person, and that could only, as you say, be better for his performances on the pitch. And a player that I think Gareth Bale could really influence during his time at the club is Jack Clarke, and we saw him make his competitive debut for the club last night. It wasn't. Again, look, it was a low-key thing. We were never going to expect a 10 out of 10 performance on his debut, but I thought he handled it really well, and he was very unfortunate not to score. What did you make of his little cameo role? Well, I think we've lost your audio there, Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that. He was the one player they were talking about going on loan in the summer. Birmingham was the club as well because of Mourinho and Karanka's friendship. But he was training a lot in the Europa League qualifying teams, and apparently Jose he liked the look of him, and which is what it's all about in training, isn't it? He said, it's probably better that he stays here and trains with the best players, some of the best players around. And yeah, you're right. I mean, just so close. He'll be kicking himself this morning because he got himself into the right position and should have scored really. But yeah, I mean, it's a great start for him because, even hand on my heart, I've got to admit, I wasn't sure if he had a future at Tottenham. It was a bit of a strange transfer because I remember talking to Maurizio and he said, well, I've never really seen him. So he must have come under a high recommendation from scouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that age, it can be really tough. You don't break in and all of a sudden you just flitter away and drop down the divisions. But he's obviously made an impression, and fair play to him for that.
Yeah, and it was, of course, the initial deal saw him go back out on loan to Leeds at the start, and he really struggled for game time there, and kind of getting recalled and sent out to a new team mid-season. It's never an easy one to adjust to, but I do personally feel it's better to have him in the setup this season, because it's something Pochettino kind of believed in, keeping players where they are rather than loaning them out to get them used to the system that is there. And I think we've seen a progression from Jack Clarke, even from the pre-season friendlies to where we are now. And I think he actually started the first game of the season for the Premier League 2 side. They drew 1-1 with Brighton. So I think it has been a quick rise to prominence in the team for him. I don't think he was in plans earlier on, as you say, the potential loan to Birmingham. But it's been good to see him get into the team, and hopefully he is someone who can play a good role for us this season. And I think in these Europa League games as well, because it is one a week as we get through the group stage, it's a time for Bale and Clarke to get a lot of time on the pitch and get their match fitness back. But I think the big question with Tottenham now is can we win the Europa League? We saw Napoli miss up against Alkmaar last night. Big wins for Bayer Leverkusen and Milan, who I would probably identify as our biggest threats in that.
Mm.
Do you think we can actually go on and win that trophy?
Oh, no, you're really testing me here. I've been very vocal in my feelings towards the Europa League over the last few years. You know, it's a very bloated competition which needs a real
Mm-hmm.
look at. You know, I don't really see why you need a round of 32 when you've got groups going up to L. Of course, you know, the answer is the Champions League dropouts. Again, that's a big debate. You know, UEFA will strongly say, you know, we need it financially, but I don't know. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, you know, as Jose has said many times, it's half a season in itself. So, I mean, if Spurs don't win it, then I feel like they'll never win it because this is the man to do it. You know, he's won it for Porto. He's won it with a very average Manchester United side. So it will come down to maybe the latter stages where have Spurs stopped conceding silly goals, because we know that's the problem with them at the moment. You know, giving away needless fouls, and all of a sudden they put themselves in trouble. Even the Newcastle game, the VAR. Okay, it's VAR and it looked bad, but again, giving the ball away, silly fouls when we should be, when we should be putting the game to bed. So I think it's difficult at the moment to say whether I think Spurs will win the Europa League. I think they're one of many good teams in it, but there'll be so much depending on it. But saying that, they've got a really big squad now, a good squad, you know, and that's really going to help. You know, Lucas, Lamella, who divides opinion, but I can't see Lamella playing Monday. Then he'll maybe play again next Thursday. Winks is now fighting for his place, another one who divides opinion. I can't see him playing Monday. So all of a sudden, you've got players who are playing once a week in the Premier League and once a week in the Europa League, with a little mix in between, like the Højbjergs, who I think he's the Terminator, isn't he? He's just a machine, this guy, you know? So there's no better manager. I know this is a really long answer, but there's no better manager to win this competition than the one we've got now. But there's so many factors that make you win the Europa League, and a lot is down to luck. But this is a very different year, very different season for everyone involved in football. So yeah, let's be positive. You know, why not? But it would be an amazing achievement if we did as well.
Yeah, it would be so magical, I suppose, for that to be the first trophy that we win after such a long drought. Is it coming up to 13 years now since we won that Carling Cup against Chelsea, which it should never happen at a club the size of Spurs. No. And look, for me, kind of the main difference that we've seen, I suppose, recently as we're starting to play well under Mourinho and our time under Pochettino is, I think the style of play for, and if you're looking at it basically in terms of playing attacking, fast-flowing football, I think is similar. But we can question the winning mentality that has come into the squad now, and unfortunately, that's been a bit criticised after what happened on Sunday, going 3-0 up against West Ham so early on in the game, and somehow managing to throw that away. I think we're the first team to actually lead by 3 goals after 80 minutes in a Premier League game and not come away with the 3 points. Which, look, we've seen a lot of records smashed this season, but that's definitely one you don't want. Is there any way we can explain that collapse?
Well, there's a couple of things really. I mean, I've touched on against Newcastle, giving away the needless fouls, putting a game to bed. You know, Harry had a chance and he hit the post. He's very unlucky. Gareth Bale's chance. I mean, at 3-0, I thought Spurs were going to win 7-0. I really did. But it just shows there's that warning sign there that everyone may be getting a bit too carried away. And there is still that soft centre. Dare I say that awful word? I won't say it. The S word. But you know, there is that thing there. And the good thing is that it's happening at the start of the season where they can eradicate it. And believe you me, Jose Mourinho will be putting that into the players' heads. Even if hypothetically we're winning at Burnley Monday, those players need to know that you've got to hold on to this lead, because otherwise it's going to become a real issue. And I think everyone's seen that. Worryingly, it's looking like it's at home, because away we're just running wild, aren't we? Because I think, you know, even though people say home and away advantage has gone a lot because of the crowd, and I agree with that, there's still that pressure of the home side to push, and then we counter that with pace, guile, you name it, you know, with the likes of Son and Harry. But just at home, you know, we've all seen it, you know, there's a little bit of naivety, silly tackles. but they're all learning. They're all getting used to each other. So let's just hope it's a rare one. But it is a concern because you don't want to keep dropping more points.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that we've been known for in the past, not been able to hold on to leads, and we're hoping Mourinho will be the man to eradicate that, as you said. But look, if we want to take the positives out of that game on Sunday, that link up between Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, again, absolutely sensational. I think they're the most prolific partnership in the league since Son joined in 2015. I think they're only 11 behind being the most prolific in Premier League history. It's Drogba and Lampard out in front there, combining for 38 goals. Son, top scorer, joint top scorer, Kane with top assists. Are they the best strike partnership in the league?
Oh, they've got to be, haven't they? They've got to be. I can't think of anyone else. I mean, Calvert-Lewin on his own has been phenomenal. But as a pair, I'd be scared stiff. They're just, I mean, you've got Sonny, who loves being actually the forward with his pace. And whether he likes it or not, Harry's turning into probably the best number 10 in the world. His passing is just, I mean, I'm a Football Manager fan, and if his passing isn't 1920 in the next game, he's just developed this. It's encouraging for him, actually, because I know he's obsessed with goals, and rightly so. And if he stays fit, he will break records. But he's developing a Glenn Hoddle-esque type in him, in the sense that he's finding players with the passing range, which, I mean, it's just mesmerizing. I mean, Southampton especially, just he's through balls, because I was a big critic of Spurs not replacing Eriksen because of his creativity. And in a funny way, we've got it with Harry. I mean, we've all seen it. It's like, wow, what a ball. What a ball from Harry Kane. And it's not something I was used to years going back. I mean, he was a lot more than just a goal scorer, granted, but he's really developing his game, and it's something, I don't know whether he's worked on during his injury, or something he's working with Mourinho, or something him and Son have sort of worked out together. But yeah, I mean, you're asking me now, Matt. I can't think of anyone at the moment as a duo, because most play one up front anyway, and we're just blessed. We've got someone like Sonny who can play out wide and drift in. So yeah, I'd say they are the most dangerous. They have to be.
Yeah, the link up play this season has been sensational. Look, there's always going to be the question of I suppose, over reliance on them, which I spoke about a few weeks back on my channel. But I think it's so interesting seeing Kane drop into this kind of deeper role. But what's most impressive for me is that it's not affecting his goal scoring. He still already has 5 goals in the league this season. I think he's up at 9 in all competitions now. Yeah. He's world class, and I think for me this season so far he has been the best player in the Premier League. But I wouldn't even call it a worrying factor. It's, of course, really exciting that we still have, I suppose, Bale to fully put into that attacking lineup. Yeah. But do you think Bale being added to that could kind of break up the dynamic that Kane and Son have developed this season?
What a problem, eh? I mean, it's just, it's just unbelievable that we're even thinking that. I don't think so. Look, I don't mean to be a cynic, but. And a stick in the mud, but I mean, one of them will get injured. I mean, both will get injured at some stage of the season. I mean, look at last season with Harry Kane's injury. Ruptured hamstring. That is a seriously bad injury. Yeah. Couple that with all the ankle injuries he's had over the last few years. Sonny had a badly broken arm. Gareth, we know, gets injuries. So I just think we should look at it and think, let them play together. Let's watch it, let's see it. And because obviously Son came off against West Ham. In hindsight, Spurs don't lose that game with Son in the team, because of the way he tracks back, the way he runs with the ball. But yeah, the three of them playing together, I mean, it's just, we need to embrace how frightening that could be. I mean, I think that's where the neutrals have been talking. So I can't see it hampering, because I'd imagine Bale would probably go on the right-hand side of the three and Kane up front. I'm assuming so anyway, unless Jose's got other ideas. But isn't it a great problem to have?
It's the best problem you could possibly have. And look, I've been saying for a while that I do think in terms of squad depth and kind of the backup options that we do have, I think Tottenham have the best team in the league. And there may be a bias side of that. We've heard Pep Guardiola talking earlier in the season, saying going into the season, City only had 13 first-team players, and you're looking at Liverpool. They've lost Virgil van Dijk now to a long-term injury, and the panic is set in there because they don't have options who are as good as him to come back into that team. And I think the centre-back role is one for us that has, of course, given problems in the past. Usually, if it wasn't Alderweireld and Vertonghen, we're putting someone in there who doesn't have a lot of game time, who wasn't the ideal choice for the fans. And I think Davinson Sanchez, again, is a player that does split opinion. He had a disappointing performance in that game, of course, gave West Ham their second goal. What do you make of him, I suppose, in that game, but also generally as a centre-back option going into this season?
Yeah, sometimes he's great, and then sometimes he makes one error and it can be quite costly. I mean, you look at the United game, giving the penalty away so early. Who would have thought it wouldn't have mattered? But sometimes it just loses that little bit of concentration. So I do like him, but is he top draw? Probably not. Has he got improving to do? Yes. Can he improve? Yes, of course he can. He's got a brilliant coaching team around him and a manager who's a specialist in getting the best out of players. Are we at a stage where Toby's probably dropped down a little bit? Because I think a few seasons ago, whoever was next to Toby looked good. Toby was that good. But now maybe Davinson's having to take more responsibility. So for me, there's no doubt. Although we've signed Rodon, and that looks like a really good signing, and all the reports you hear is that that's a homegrown player who Spurs should be delighted with. However, I think Skriniar, someone like that would have just given Tottenham's transfer dealings a 10 out of 10. Just looks the real deal, and I think it actually took Inter Milan by surprise just how much Spurs wanted him. And all of a sudden it's like, no, he's our player. Well, he doesn't always fit into your system, does he? But he's someone who looks, from what the reports and from what I've seen, is that kind of big dominating defender, someone who can put the ball, push the ball forward, and just someone who could help. I think defenders like working alongside people they can look up to as well, So, and I think also the problem is, and this isn't Davinson Sanchez's fault at all, is that he probably doesn't have a full-time partner. With Toby and Jan Vertonghen, that was the two at the back we had, unless there was any injuries. So Spurs were covered. The real shame that we don't have them now, because I think Spurs would be one of the title favourites. I really do. Them as a two before, Jan got a bit older and Toby got a bit older. I mean, they weren't much better in Europe. I genuinely believe that. Mm-hmm. So I think Spurs need to sort of look in that area, and they're trying to improve that area. Whether that means in the future no Davinson or someone with him is up to him, because he has something and he has that ability. It's whether he can cut out the odd silly error. I might be being a bit critical of him, but I mean, let's not forget he came to the club for a lot of money in a time when Spurs weren't spending much. He came, rising to 40 million quid. That's a lot of money in any era of football. But yeah, I think it's funny that I still think the jury's out in a little bit. I mean, some people completely write him off, but I do think there's times where I say, yeah, he's done well today, but there's times where he can that odd error,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think look, again, I'm saying to you, I don't want to be too critical of him, but I think one of the main reasons that he is sort of in and around our squad is he offers something that or the centre backs don't, in terms of his pace and his power. And it's those games against the likes of West Ham, if they're going to play Mikel Antonio up front, if they're going to be playing a Liverpool or a City, when they have that really pacey front line, he offers that ability to track players with that pace a bit more than the likes of Alderweireld and Dyer. But look, just touching on Skriniar, I think it would be really critical of us to sit here and well, not critical, but maybe a bit unfair, I suppose, if we're going to look at the one player we didn't get over the line this summer and say it is what's going to cost us, because the business this summer, as you say, has been absolutely exceptional. And I had Fabrizio Romano on the podcast last week, and he was saying from an Inter Milan point of view, he is expecting Tottenham to go back in with a bid there. So hopefully that is something we can get over the line in January. But if we had it done now, I think, as you say, we'd be a very different force. But look, one deal we did get over the line, and is turning out to be, for me, the best signing we've made anyway. I don't know about the best signing in the league, but it's Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. What have you made of him?
Yeah, I mean, speaking to a couple of colleagues of mine who are Southampton fans, I think they underplayed him a little bit because they quickly told me, he's no Schneiderlin, he's no Wanyama, he doesn't get the, just basically gave me the impression he was average. Excuse me. And he's anything but. He's just, against Everton, and I owe him an apology myself. I wasn't sure, and I thought, I'm not sure about this guy. He looks like a bit of a top 10 signing and not a top 4 signing. And how wrong was I? He just looks, he's everywhere, isn't he? And he's just got that determination and that killer bite with guile at the same time, which Tottenham have lacked for so long. Is he a Dembele? No, because I think Dembele was a freak of nature. I just thought he was just phenomenal. We all did, then wasn't it? But he fits into Tottenham's team perfectly. He doesn't, although he's really sort of down to do the messy jobs a lot of the time. He's got a great range of pass on him, and we've seen that with the Serge Aurier through ball. And in the Europa League, you've just, in against LASK, he's tied in the ball, he's through balls, and he's oh god, he's got he can't stop bleeding. Quick, get a bandage on me. Quick, I'm straight back on. I think that's Spurs loved that. I remember Spurs have always been. Spurs used to love Stefan Freund, and Højbjerg is a much better player than Stefan Freund. So I can see him being a very, very popular player when the crowds are back. And he's got that kind of leader without the armband kind of mentality. You'd think he'd been there about 8 or 9 years, the way he shouts at the players and G's them up. And, I've seen certain instances where he's, patting a player on the back, a big well done for a good ball or a good tackle. He's just got that leadership in him. And I know he was the captain at Southampton, but I don't know where he'd rank in terms of captains at Spurs, given he's a new player. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's really settled in, and great value. When Kyle Walker-Peters, who's very popular at Tottenham, but when a bid came in there, he needed a fresh challenge. It was clear that Jose didn't fancy him. I don't think Jose thought he was tall enough, and certain other reasons. But he left with everyone's best wishes. But then, if they could have done a deal with Southampton, which they did. Looks like a great deal, doesn't it? It looks like a really, really good deal for both parties, but for Tottenham in particular.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Some of the business the club have managed to get done over the last few years in terms of value for money, and Højbjerg is definitely up there at the top. And I remember, we were trying to get him last January, and look, it would have been a good signing to have, but at the time I thought, sure, look, we've missed out. It's not the end of the world. And I didn't expect us to go back in as early as we did, but the most interesting thing for me is, like, as you say, he's not exactly Dembele type player, but he kind of fits into a similar role. And his addition is giving Ndombele a bit more license to go forward. And Ndombele, a player who we kind of thought was brought in to be that replacement for Dembele, he's now looking a lot better going forward. And he's almost like a new signing in the way he's playing this season and that license he's been given. How impressed have you been with his performances so far?
Yeah, that's, again, another great positive over the last few weeks is his happiness as well. The problem with modern day football fans, and this isn't a criticism at all, because we all want it. We just want them to just start off right from the start, and hit the ground running. But sometimes in life, even in any walk of life, if you or I started a new job in another country, it doesn't matter how much money we earn. It's our mental state, and clearly wasn't settled. Things weren't right. And that actually came across a bit, didn't it, in the documentary since. Looked overweight last year. He looked sluggish. Didn't look like he wanted to be there. All the bad concoctions of someone who you feel like this isn't going to work out. And to be fair to Tottenham, they could have just turned around and said, look, this isn't going to happen. And it didn't look like it was going to happen. Mourinho just gave us the impression this could be like a Pogba 2, if you know what I mean, from the Man United days. But thank God it didn't happen. He's really, if you look at any training photos now on social media, he's always smiling. It's so important to be positive. And again, as you say, you mentioned Dembele. He's different. He's very, very skillful. He's got a fantastic pass on him. And I'm really, everyone keeps talking about the Bale, Kane, and Son 3. The 3 I'm looking forward to seeing is the Højbjerg, Lo Celso, Ndombele 3. Because I really like the thought of Lo Celso and Ndombele bombing forward with the pass, with the creativity, which I think they've both got in their locker, and Højbjerg just to protect. And then you've got Lo Celso and Ndombele, who can trap back, who are great tacklers themselves, who like getting involved. That for me is, not just as mouth-watering, but very, very, very exciting for all Tottenham supporters. And I think we'll see that maybe before the forward 3 everyone's talking about. So it's all coming together.
Yeah, it really is, and it's so exciting to see. And while we all would have loved for Pochettino to be the manager, as we do, put together this fantastic team, push on to the next level. I think Mourinho was probably the best option that we could have, because he's the one who wins trophies. He's putting together a team that can win trophies, and he's just a very different manager to what we've seen from him before. He said himself when he came to Tottenham, he said he reinvented as a manager, he reinvented as a person. We saw him bring in this coaching setup from Lille, which out Sacramento, Ricardo Formosino, and a few others who are kind of known for that attacking style of play that they do have. How do you think he's fared in terms of this new sort of philosophy he's putting forward?
I think he's a man who looks like he's happy to be here, genuinely happy to be here. He never really looked happy at Man U. I think for him, not last chance saloon, that would be unfair. But when this job came about, I think he realizes, wow, this is a great job. Bit lucky here because I've just been sacked, and now I've got another top job, but potentially better players, best stadium in the world, best training ground in London at least, but one of the best in Europe. And he's embraced it. There's no kind of negative. When I used to listen to him at Man United, playing for all, we all loved Maurizio, and believe you me, in his head he knew time was up. So it wasn't an out of the blue, I can't believe this has happened. I was in press conferences where something had gone, the spark had gone with him, and we can talk all day about whether he was backed or not, but he got a very, very good payoff. And I think ultimately he would have thought he was going to get a job by now, a really good job. But it hasn't happened. But I think, during his time, near the end of his time at Tottenham, he would have, he always had it in the back of his head where he was going to get one. But that's my message really to Spurs fans, is that you don't have to really hate. You don't have to. You can like two people. You don't even have to like Mourinho as a person. Just acknowledge that there's something happening here. You still get a couple who say, "Oh no, he's Chelsea. You can't take to him this and that." You can't help some people. But if this man, if you had your hand on your heart and you were honest and you thought, look, who can win a Carabao Cup for us? Who can win a Europa League? Who can win an FA Cup? I picked Jose Mourinho every single time. And I think Maurizio did an incredible job at Tottenham, all those top four finishes. But hey, he made mistakes too. I was at Cup semi-finals where goodness knows why he thought, let's give Michel Vorm a game today. Why? Yeah. Why? Please, why? And he's not the only one. He's not the only continental manager that does it. He's not the only manager that does it.
Yeah.
But mistakes were made, but people forget. Despite his amazing job, Mourinho will carry on making mistakes. But if you're talking to me about a man right now and where Tottenham are, because it is getting ridiculous now, the lack of trophies, Spurs fans are sick of hearing about it. If you ask me who's the manager who's probably best equipped to give you those trophies, it's the one we've got at the club right now.
Definitely, I 100% agree with you, and I will always love Poch and what he did for the club. But Mourinho is the man now, and we need to give him our full support. I think my kind of looking at it when he first came in was, he's a Chelsea man, he's a United man, but I didn't agree with the appointment at the start, and I'm delighted to have been proved wrong. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, whether we like him or not, he's the manager of our football club, and we have to respect him and give him more support for that. But I think it's very clear that you think he can bring trophies to the club. But in terms of this season, what are your expectations? What are your hopes for the 8 or so months ahead?
Well, I mean, with who he's brought in, you know, he has to finish in the top 4 now for me. You know,
Mhm.
we've not even spoke about, I think, Tottenham's best signing, Reguilon. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
he's completely transformed that left-hand side. I know I'd happily go to Real Madrid now and give them an extra 10 million to take that clause out. He's that good. Um, he's rapid. He's exciting. He's got a great cross. He could actually transform Tottenham's style of play because, with respect to Ben Davies, he didn't have that in his locker. All Sergio Reguilon, for me, from the little bits I've seen already, has to do is probably, you don't really have to dive into every single challenge. If if the ball's gone, don't bother, because you're going to end up getting a bad injury, or we'll concede a goal from a free kick. But that's me being picky. I absolutely love the guy. So in terms of the signings, Jose Mourinho was very clear in the summer. He said, I know what I want, and if I get them, I'll be very confident. Well, to me, it looks like he's got what he wants, and maybe a bit more as well, apart from Skriniar. But that squad, we've all done it. We've all written out players for every position. It's all systems go.
Mhm.
So I think Tottenham really should be at least going for the top 4, which gets them back in the Champions League, which is incredibly important for many reasons. And this has to be the year Spurs win a trophy. The problem is, I see it too many times on social media, is what would you prefer? Top 4 or a trophy? Top clubs don't deal with ors. It's
Mhm.
ands,
Yeah,
and that's what Spurs have to get ingrained. The Carabao Cup, they're in the quarterfinals at Stoke. With the greatest respect to Stoke, that's a good draw.
definitely.
They win that, they're in the one-leg semi, which is this year, and one-leg semi this season, and a final. They they are 3 wins away from their first trophy. It's that clear.
Mhm.
So they must, for me, win a domestic trophy or Europa League this season. So top 4 and a cup has to be the priority.
Yeah, look, it's again. I said it was strange that we were so relaxed on deadline day. It's strange that we're in a position where we're expecting trophies this season.
Mm.
It's been so long since Tottenham have been like that, but it's where we are. It's the manager we have. It's a fantastic team we put together, and hopefully this is the year we do see that trophy draw come to an end. Anyway, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the channel. It really has. Thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much
me.
for your time.
No,
It
my
was
absolute
brilliant to have
pleasure.
you.
My absolute